22. Reputation as emotional consistency made visible. Reputation is often treated as an external phenomenon, something created through marketing, branding, customer service, public relations, and industry recognition. But these visible elements are merely reflections of something deeper. Reputation is not built outside the organization. It is built inside it, long before anyone in the outside world notices. Reputation is emotional consistency made visible. Customers, regulators, partners, and stakeholders experience not only what the organization does, but how the organization feels. They pick up on tone, responsiveness, steadiness, empathy, and coherence. They sense whether information they receive is aligned or fragmented. They feel whether the organization moves as one entity or as many. They detect when urgency is balanced with clarity or distorted by panic. They know when silence signals stability and when it signals confusion. The external world is remarkably perceptive. It does not analyze the emotional architecture of a company consciously, but it recognizes the consequences intuitively. A global client once said of a highly aligned organization, "I don't have to guess what they mean. They feel like one company, even when their offices are 10,000 kilometers apart." The word that stands out here is feel. Customers rarely articulate it in strategic terms, yet they respond emotionally to emotional coherence. Conversely, organizations with internal drift are experienced externally as inconsistent, unreliable, or unpredictable even when their technical performance is strong. A single delayed escalation can create the impression of disorganization. A tone mismatch across regions creates confusion. Divergent interpretations of urgency can weaken confidence. Disjointed communication becomes reputational noise. One global technology supplier learned this after receiving feedback from a major client who said, "Your teams are competent, but we never know what mood your company is in." The client was not talking about technical mood. They were describing emotional volatility, the same volatility that had been present internally. Tone had drifted across regions. Leadership messages landed unevenly. Crisis responses varied widely. The client felt the emotional fragmentation before the executive team fully understood it. Reputation had become the mirror of misalignment. Emotion scales outward faster than process. A steady emotional architecture produces a steady reputation, while an unstable emotional architecture inevitably creates an unstable one. One multinational engineering company learned this during a complex global recall. Although the operational challenge was significant, customers expressed unexpected trust. "We knew you'd handle this well," a customer wrote. "You've always been clear, fair, and calm." These comments did not arise from marketing strategy or crisis communications. They arose because, for years, the organization's internal emotional life had been consistent. Tone traveled predictably. Escalations were uniform. Regions did not contradict each other. Customers felt the stability long before they needed to rely on it. This is the essence of reputational strength, emotional predictability. When an organization is emotionally aligned, it develops what I call reputational gravity, the ability to pull trust toward itself without effort. People instinctively believe the organization will act consistently, even when under pressure. They do not fear sudden changes in tone. They do not interpret silence as danger. They do not expect internal contradictions. This predictability becomes a competitive asset. One global pharmaceutical company experienced reputational gravity during a regulatory inspection. While competitors scrambled to provide documentation or correct inconsistencies, this organization moved through the inspection with calm professionalism. Regulators later commented on how cohesive the company felt. They perceived emotional unity, and emotional unity translated into credibility. In contrast, when emotional architecture is weak, reputation becomes fragile. Even small issues carry disproportionate reputational weight. Customers or regulators sense emotional instability, and their confidence erodes. A minor miscommunication becomes a sign of deeper dysfunction. Silence is interpreted as avoidance. Urgency is misread as panic. Fragmented tone is seen as evidence of weak leadership. This is not because external stakeholders are hypersensitive, it is because emotion is the most reliable indicator of organizational health. Emotional misalignment internally becomes reputational misalignment externally. Another aspect of reputational strength is how organizations handle moments of truth, those brief interactions where the company's identity becomes unmistakably visible. These moments may involve crisis updates, customer negotiations, regulatory conversations, or simple operational clarifications. In emotionally aligned organizations, these moments feel similar regardless of who is speaking or where they are located. The organization expresses itself with one voice, even through many mouths. One senior executive at a global services firm described how her teams delivered a major update to stakeholders from 5 different countries. "You could have closed your eyes," she said, "and you would not have known who was speaking. It was all the same tone, the same clarity, the same emotional steadiness." Stakeholders interpreted this as excellence. But what they were experiencing was coherence. Emotional alignment had become the company's external identity. The link between emotional coherence and reputation is so strong that, over time, they become inseparable. Customers begin to expect a certain emotional quality from the organization: steadiness, clarity, professionalism, humanity. Regulators expect consistency and transparency. Partners expect reliability. Employees expect safety. These expectations are not built through branding, they are built through experience. Branding simply expresses what people already feel. Reputation, at its core, is the external perception of internal truth. For this reason, organizations that invest in emotional alignment do not merely become more cohesive internally, they grow more trusted externally. They build reputations that are not vulnerable to sudden shifts in tone or local misinterpretations. They project maturity because they embody maturity. They become the kind of organizations that customers want to work with, regulators want to trust, employees want to grow in, and partners want to commit to. Such organizations rarely need to announce their stability. They radiate it. The next chapter will bring the book into its final arc, exploring how emotional alignment becomes not just a framework or advantage, but an identity, a signature that shapes how the organization shows up in the world, year after year, crisis after crisis, leadership change after leadership change.